there are options in order to make the defense better. And one of those options was something that you made a video about, which was the idea about getting Max Crosby from the Raiders. Now, I don't know if the Raiders would actually make this trade, but
Yeah.
they need help. They need draft capital. They need to rebuild their team. You got Brock Bowers, Max Crosby, and then a bunch of guys. So it's like you really need to revamp your team. What do you think about this idea of trading for Max Crosby? And do you think it's actually a legitimate trade that could possibly happen?
I think when you talk about, could this trade actually happen? Sure. I think that obviously it takes two to tango. It takes the Raiders willing to part ways with one of, if not their best defensive player, but it also takes San Francisco willing to trade multiple draft picks to make it happen. I think that, in a perfect world, your defense looks like Robert Saleh at the helm and Max Crosby with Nick Bosa. Obviously, it feels like a long shot. Obviously, it feels, like that sounds so out of this world, like this is not going to happen. But I think that, and really this has all kind of been sparked by what Crosby has been saying in the media recently as of, on the last Friday, and also what Diamo Lenore tweeted out over the weekend, which kind of came out of nowhere. Him just being like, I want to see Max Crosby in a Niners jersey.
What was that
Like,
about?
I don't understand where that came from, but maybe he was watching Good Morning Football, where Max Crosby was talking about his future and had been very blunt and open about, I don't want to go through another rebuild. I want to win championships. I want to win Super Bowls. I want to be perennially involved in games in January and February. And if that's the case, and the Raiders are going to go through a rebuild again with a new GM and head coach, it's going to take him a couple years to be a contender when you have to play Patrick Mahomes twice a year, Bo Nix and Sean Payton twice a year, and Harbaugh and Herbert twice a year. It's going to be a hard road to get to the playoffs. So, and not to say those teams' runs of success will last forever, but how about San Francisco, where you have Seattle, who they're competent enough and maybe on the upward trend, got to find a new quarterback. But then you have the Cardinals that are kind of putting things together. They're certainly playing spoiler beat San Francisco twice this year, but you look at what's to come, hopefully next year for San Francisco in 2025. The Rams could lose Matthew Stafford. They could lose Cooper Kupp. Like, the Niners could be, if they're fully healthy again, the top dog in the NFC West, at least, if not the entire NFC. And so, if, is a trade like this possible? I don't see how it couldn't be, unless the Raiders simply just say no. I know a lot of fans in my YouTube chat yesterday and on Twitter were like, don't do it. No, it's a bad deal. You can't do this. And I'm like, why would you not want another star edge rusher that this defense has been looking for the last 5 years? It was Dee Ford, it was Leonard Floyd, it was Chase Young, it was Drake Jackson. Like, they've been trying to find the guy opposite Nick Bosa, and they haven't been able to for a variety of reasons, right? But he ranks 6th in sacks since 2019, 59 and a half, just 2 spots below from Nick Bosa. He has almost 430 total pressures. He has 9 forced fumbles. Like, this is one of the most dangerous defensive players in football. Absolutely. I don't know how anybody would not say, yeah, bring him to San Francisco, but that's where the conversation of compensation comes in, which is what the big hang-up could be. And I'll just ask you this. While I have a comparison trade here, I'm sure maybe you watched yesterday on my own show, but I tossed out there on Twitter, would you trade the number 11 overall pick for Max Crosby?
Yes, I would.
Exactly.
The reason why is because you look at last year, he had 7.5 sacks, only played in 12 games, but the prior season, 14.5 sacks. 2022, 12.5 sacks. So this guy has gotten better and better each and every year. And I think that this would be a huge upgrade from even especially when we got Chase Young, that sounded sexy, but didn't really work out as well as they wanted to. This one I think would work out. And on top of that, you would have Leonard Floyd backing up both Nick Bosa and Max Crosby. So you constantly have a two combination of pass rushers at defensive end in the game almost at every time. So that would make our defense, our pass rush, so much better. And you know there'd be times where they'd have where they would run Crosby, Bosa, and Leonard Floyd out there all at the same time. Like just go right after him. You know, it's their race car package, as I like to say. But let's take a listen to what Crosby had to say on the clip that you were talking about, just to get a better perspective of it coming straight from the horse's mouth, which is, Max Crosby. Here we go.
Everyone's trying to win. You know what I mean? The intent is not changing. Everyone wants to win. That's no secret. But it's about stability. So whoever that guy is going to be, who they bring in, I know that's, in the back of their mind. They want to have somebody that's going to be here for the long haul, get them build a real culture, build something that could be sustained over a long period of time. So, that's what it looks like for me. But yeah, I've had a lot of turnover for sure. I've had a lot of different D-line coaches, a lot of different coordinators. I've seen a lot in the league, but at the end of the day, for me, like that's all that really matters is winning, having a chance to win, being these type of games at this time of the year, and getting a gold jacket. You know what I mean? That's all that matters to me.
So let's talk about that. We're talking with Sterling Bennett, host of 49ers Access. He covers Niners 95.7 The Game. If you were looking to package a trade to get Max Crosby, and you talked about the number 11 pick, I think that would have to be involved, or you're talking about a flurry of other picks that they have, 10 picks in this next coming draft. So it doesn't have to be number 11, but it could be a combination of multiple picks going to the Raiders because, like I said, they need to rebuild. They need to revamp that whole team. They're getting a new head coach. And I think this time Tom Brady is going to have a much bigger say in who gets selected for that head coaching job. Even though he's like, I'm not really going to be a part of this until I finish my commentary career. I bet.
Sure.
Yeah, sure, dude. So, I think if you were to trade number 11 pick, it'd have to be straight up like number 11 pick for Max Crosby. It can't be a number 11 pick, a second rounder, and a fifth rounder next year. No. Because, I mean, look, if you did the number 11 pick, at least you're telling the Raiders, hey, look, here's your chance to get your next star. May it be a quarterback, may it be anything.
Well, you essentially have 2 top 10 picks at that point.
Exactly. Now, some would argue, well, no, don't do that because we need an offensive lineman. They're not going to draft. If you ask me, they're not going to draft an offensive lineman. They're not. They're going to draft a pass rusher. And if they can flip that number 11 pick for Max Crosby, I would do it in a heartbeat. Yeah. They have not have a hit. They have not had a history of drafting a lot of offensive linemen. Now, they did draft Aaron Banks and they drafted Dominic Pooney, but that's really about it. The ones that have been successful.
Don't forget McGlinchey.
McGlinchey, that's right. They did out of Notre Dame. So what do you think? I know you kind of mentioned earlier. What do you think would make this trade happen if the Niners wanted to pursue a trade for Max Crosby?
So I think to start, you have to look at, would San Francisco be willing to part ways and make a big splash like this? I know this offseason, there's been a lot of debate of what Brock Purdy gets and how that affects the salary cap and stuff. I think starting with the financials, and if San Francisco would be open to making this move, I think the Niners are always looking to make splash moves, whether it is Chase Young, middle of the year, Christian McCaffrey, middle of the year. Don't forget, the last time this team picked 11, 12 in that range, there was the Trey Lance year. Now, obviously, Trey Lance, that didn't work out, and maybe they feel a little burned by that, but the finances work for Max Crosby as a whole. According to Over the Cap, he'd be owed around $42.8 million the next 2 years, but none of that is guaranteed. Hence, you can restructure that deal any way you want to, add guaranteed money onto it, lower his cap hit, and he has 2 void years on his contract. 3 void years. So you can erase those void years, give him a big contract extension. He'll be in San Francisco, where he gets everything he wants. He gets continuity at quarterback, defensive line coach, head coach, GM. He has Fred Warner. He has Nick Bosa. He has a newly minted Diamador Lenore. He has Mustafa. He has all these pieces in place he wants to have to be able to contend. The finances work from every single aspect of it, how you look at it. But I think San Francisco, when you talk about 11th overall pick, let's say it is that, although I don't think it will be. Let's say it is just that. You'd be getting a bona fide superstar with that pick, where no matter who you take at 11, whether it's an edge rusher, Abdul Carter from Penn State, who won't be there at 11, but let's just say he is hypothetically, you don't promise he'll be a star. Whether it's Will Campbell, Kelvin Banks from Texas, or LSU,
Mhm.
there's no promise they'll be stars, and they could be great, but you just don't know. There's a risk in taking 23, 24-year-old players who have never played a snap in the NFL, whereas Max Crosby, he's had 4 or 5 years of tremendous success. He's been a Pro Bowler. He's been a sack leader.
He's only
Again,
27.
like, it makes the most sense, and you'd pair Nick Bosa with the guy you've been looking for half a decade. But if there is a trade package you'd point to and compare, because a lot of Raider fans, even Niner fans, would say you're going to have to give him 11 and your second round pick and your third round pick. And that's not entirely true, because last year, just 1 year ago, the Carolina Panthers traded away Brian Burns to the New York Giants. Burns wanted a brand new contract, and everyone talked about, 2 first-round draft picks. It'll be this and that. It'll be this outlandish trade package. And thankfully, that didn't happen. It was just a second-round pick, and then it was a fifth-round pick and a fifth-round pick swap. The Panthers essentially got nothing, if you will, for Brian Burns. And I think that right there is where your starting point is. Okay, I will give you my 43rd overall pick if I'm San Francisco. If, because that's 4 picks behind where the Panthers or the Giants were picking, then I'll give you my 4th round pick instead of a 5th round pick. And I'll give you a 4th round pick swap. Like, you can make that work realistically. The Raiders don't take that big of a cap hit this year and next year. You extend Max Crosby. And if you're San Francisco, you get a bona fide superstar by using your 2nd round pick and a couple mid-round picks, and you keep number 11. Like, why would you not, if you're both sides, why would you not be open to doing that? If Crosby doesn't want to be there because of a rebuild, he said, get me out of here. San Francisco better be on the phones tomorrow if that's the case.
You would think, right? And then if you made that trade, then you can really say, okay, first round pick is going to be the best offensive lineman that is available. Maybe,
or
a right
tackle. Who knows?
Or defensive tackle. Because at that point, if you're taking on Max Crosby, they're probably not going to go sign a DJ Jones, because now they're dumping money into him. Or defensive tackle. Offensive line or defensive tackle. And look, as much as we hated our offensive line, most of them are going to be back next season, except for Aaron Banks. He's a free agent. But, I mean, honestly, the times that we had Ben Barch or even Spencer Burford at left guard, they actually performed really well. Better than Aaron Banks. I don't know what was going on with Aaron Banks last year, but he was he underperformed. But the question, too, is that would Mark Davis make this trade? I mean, a lot of people say that Mark Davis would never want to help the Niners, but, I mean, honestly, they're not even in the same region anymore.
Yeah.
He's in Las Vegas, and this would give them more draft picks to make this team better. And I think that a new and incoming coach and GM would want more draft picks. Like, yeah, let's do this. This guy wants to get out of here. We're not going to be contending for the next few years. Let's get some draft picks and let's do this. Because they have 10 draft picks, almost 12 at one point, but they have 10 draft picks this upcoming draft. I mean, that's a lot of players that to select from. So I would do it. I think it'd be great. I would love it. I mean, it would immediately, if you got Max Crosby in a trade, the Niners would immediately be Super Bowl contenders.